Welcome back to Track Talk. We're going to be doing a live playthrough of a game of 1830, and we'll see if I'm able to bring home another win for the channel. So Miriam is led off with a bid on the D&H, and we'll see what Hisby wants to do next. I don't believe I've played with any of these players before, but hopefully they'll have some surprises and we'll be in for a good game. So Hisby is rounding us out with the Mohawk and Hudson, and Crewmeister will be up now. With bids on the D&H, M&H, and Camden and Amboy, I'm kind of obligated here, I think, to bid on the D&H and hope that there's not an early pull. Hopefully Miriam sees the danger as well and is willing to join on the M&H or CNA. It would be a little bit of a disaster if Miriam were to go on the Champlain and St. Lawrence here. I'd be left with a contested D&H, and there would be two really good privates going for face, basically. So it looks like she sees the dangers going on the M&H, and we now have all three privates being contested. Crewmeister, he's going to go for the Champlain and St. Lawrence, so setting up for a relatively early pull here. And I don't have any interest in going on the Champlain and St. Lawrence. I think I will bid on the M&H because I assume that Hisby will be passing and going for the CNA. So it may end up just being me and Miriam on these two privates. We'll see if Miriam wants to pull here. I think that would probably be a mistake. She may be forced to go on the Champlain and St. Lawrence, which I would be fine with, and then we probably would see Crewmeister pull. My goal in this situation would probably be to bid up the D&H maybe one more time, then pass, and then hope to get a nice Mohawk and Hudson because Miriam will already have a private, and Hisby is going to want to try and get the CNA. If I win either of these two privates, I should be safe from the B&O, so I feel fairly good in this position. And Miriam just pulls, kind of unexpected here, giving away face value Champlain and St. Lawrence, makes it more likely that Hisby will win the Camden and Amboy, and makes it less likely that she'll be able to price and force for either of these privates. We'll see if I can pick up a relatively cheap D&H. So she has overbid me for the D&H. At this point, I'm debating whether or not to pass or to bid one more time. And I think that I will bid one more time. The gap that I've spent thinking about this may give her the indication that I'm not willing to bid again, and I may get stuck with the D&H for 100. I don't think stuck is a fair word. Not a bad private to have. I will pass here. I think there's a good chance I can get the M&H here. We'll see if Hisby wants to fight for this or if he's going to be going for the CNA. If Hisby doesn't fight for this, he's on the hook for the B&O, so I may have been not on the hook for the B&O, but he will be competing for the CNA and on the hook for the B&O as a result against Crewmeister. So I may have made a mistake there because both Hisby and I are fairly motivated to try and win this M&H. It's up to 150. It's a pretty high bid. I'll overbid him. I'm okay with 150 for the M&H. Miriam has passed. She's doing okay in the auction, and we'll see if Hisby wants to continue to press this. He may want to, in which case I've made a mistake, yeah. So this is going to end up being a pretty expensive M&H. I may end up with the B&O. Looks like I've won the M&H, but I paid a pretty fair price for it, unfortunately. And we'll see, hopefully this CNA gets bid up appropriately. These two players are competing to not have the B&O, so hopefully we'll see a well-contested auction here. Otherwise, I've really left the auction in a weak spot compared to Miriam in particular. And it goes for just 195, pretty bad. And Hisby is going to end up with the B&O. So he's given Crewmeister CNA with enough money to float. Just a disaster of an auction. Really not good. I'll be taking the CNO, and I'll par that for Min. Miriam probably taking the NY&H here. Yeah, just really disappointed with the way this auction worked out. I think I played it okay. Just some of the other players are giving each other freebies. If Miriam floats ahead of me, we'll have a 3-company start. Reasonable chance that I'm able to buy in my private at the end of this OR. So maybe a redeemable position. But Miriam has parred behind me, so that's not going to be happening, which is rather unfortunate. I will continue to float the CNO. I The only good news here is that I don't think it's likely that Miriam is able to buy in her private. And in terms of private income, I am tied for last, so a slow game is really not in my benefit. Not off to a great start in this one. I'll also probably going last in priority because, or second to last in priority because Miriam may well buy another share here. I didn't realize, but Hisby actually floated the B&O low enough that he's able to float, so I will be operating third. Still a chance that I'm able to buy in my private, but it makes it very likely that Miriam's able to buy in theirs. So pretty bad news for me. Early flow to the B&O really means he should probably be racing towards Lancaster. Should be able to get ahead of the PRR and into Lancaster there. I would really like to see him not head down south. Although if he did head down south, it may increase the likelihood that he's going to buy more 2 trains and I may be able to buy in my private. If everybody just buys 1 2 train, it will still be rather hard for Miriam to buy into the 3s. They could do it, but it's really going to hurt the NYNH. We'll see. NYNH could buy a ton of trains and lay towards B&M, buy in their privates, sell down the NYNH, and start trying to float the B&M with that. It's a pretty nice synergy for the early game, but it's a high-risk strategy. They may end up just losing the game or going bankrupt. So it looks like the B&O is going south. Token's there, so he should be buying more than 1 2 train. He does. And this makes it potentially possible for me to buy in my private, but I'll be in the same position that Miriam will be potentially. So he buys a single 2 train. I'm going to head over to Chicago, and I guess I will buy in my privates here. It's going to make it really easy for Miriam. Miriam will then have a easy float of the next private or next company. It might be a little bit too risky for me to buy 3 2 trains here. The upside is that if I were able to float, I would have priority on Miriam and I could take the company that she wanted. All right, let's try it. We'll buy in the trains. We'll see. That's pretty aggressive play. I don't like the way this game has been going. But basically, she's going to have to orient to either the B&M or towards the NYC, and I'll float whichever one she picks. If I get the B&M, I'll be a little bit sadder. I think the long-term viability of that company is a lot less. But I will be able to buy some of the trains out of the C&O, revive that company, and run that company pretty well. I'll probably have to withhold on the C&O both rounds, next operating round, to get a little bit more cash into the company and avoid a bankruptcy, hopefully. It really shouldn't be possible for the other players to push through to 4s if I don't help. Although with her buying 2 3s, it becomes a whole lot more likely. So she's going to be running with the B&M, and that means I'll be floating the B&M. She's going to have not the greatest options for floating a company, I don't believe. And she's just as poor on cash as I am, or not quite, but nearly. So she might get stuck with the Erie, which is going to be a little bit problematic for her. We actually end up with the exact same amount of cash after our private buy-ins, which is very funny. So I'll probably just sell down 3 of my shares here. If I sell down 4, I'll be in orange. Might make it a little bit too easy for the other players to take my company. Be kind of ashamed to lose the C&O at this point. And I will be floating the B&M. Looks like the most I can do is 76. I may be flirting with bankruptcy with this strategy. It's definitely a high-risk strategy. I imagine the other players, particularly Hisby, will buy a share of the C&O here. Miriam may be tempted to try and take it over even. Probably wouldn't be a terrible decision on her part to do that. But that will eliminate my train liability in the company at least. if these CNO shares, if these CNO 2 trains rust, um, it'll be a little bit of a problem. I'll probably float the B&M, sell out of it partially, and then buy a paying share in another player's company. It may make sense to even trash their companies to try and rust their twos if the CNO is going to fall back as well, or not fall back, but lose their twos. We'll see what Miriam floats here. Hopefully she pars something high, and we can collectively rust the twos to screw over his B and Crewmeister. Then it'll be more like a two-player game between me and Miriam with very similar map positions. But I'll have probably a slightly better company in the CNO. Since the B&O laid down south, they're going to get behind in priority towards Lancaster. Makes it a little bit more likely that I, as the CNO, will be able to get over there. Depends a little bit on what the PRR player wants to do. PRR player is the the CNA player is the PRR, and they'll be buying in their private this time. But if they're train rust, they're also going to have to buy a 4, which is going to be pretty hard for them to do. Looks like Miriam might be stealing the CNO here. But Hisby bought a cheap share, so we'll see if she actually has the cash to do it without selling anything. I think she will. She'll need 4 shares and has 150 share available. She probably almost certainly does. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Float the B&M still. So if Miriam steals my CNO, looks like she's diversifying, so she's not going to steal it actually. All right, I think that's good news for me. Players investing in the CNO is good because I'm going to be withholding on this company, so they're basically donating their cash to me. Continuing to float the B&M. Looks like the other player is going to be mostly passing. And if I sell down a share, 2 companies will be operating before the PRR. Good chance that we can rust his 2 train before he runs, which would be pretty good. I'd love to operate after the NYNH, but I suppose I can just upgrade Boston and force him to lay Providence for me. Probably what I'll do. So if I sell here, which company do I want to buy? The NYNH, assuredly. Most value. NYNH does have the cash to lay that track and token. All right. So we'll sell 1 here and buy, well, I'll be done here and then I'll buy the NYNH. Since I'll be withholding on the CNO and not running the first operating round of the B&M, I really need to get some cash from somewhere. So I'm hoping that the NYNH pays out both times and I can buy a paying share in there to not fall so far behind. A lot of the good companies have been taken, so these players that are going to be floating next are going to be kind of fighting over some not so good companies. I usually really like the NYC, but it's just hard when the B&M has been laid with New Haven. We'll see what the B&O wants to do. Really should be picking up a 3 train here, else he runs the risk of falling back next OR. And the 3 chains are pretty cheap, so it doesn't hurt him to do it. And it really hurts the PRR. Looks like he does. Could even pick up 2, but he's going to not do that for now. Upgrade the Boston, as discussed, by a 3. And then I want to leave $41 in the B&M and buy the rest out of the CNO to consolidate cash in 1 company. Let me do the math for a second. Okay, so I think I've done that right. I'll rust the 2s, and the B&M will end up with 2 trains and pretty good track. Bad news for the PRR, who has to now pay $300 for a 4 train, is not going to be running, and then is going to have a real hard time buying in his CNA private. He can still do it, but it's going to make the PRR very weak. So all the companies are going to be in tenuous positions because I've been pushing trains so aggressively. Um, I fully admit that I'm playing very aggressively here. It may not work out for me, um, but when you leave the auction in a weak position, I think that you sometimes are forced to play this way. Otherwise, you'll just slowly bleed. So Miriam has laid the Providence track, and I have a share in that company, so I'll be able to take at least partial advantage of the revenue. Of course, it's 50, but times two. As noted, I'll be withholding to avoid bankruptcy. Plus, I'm going to need cheap shares into the next stock round. I will buy a train out of this company. I'll buy the 3 train out of the B&M in the next operating round. That way I can have just 2 non-permanent trains in the C&O and no cash. Be able to pick up a cheap share. I think that'll be probably all I'm able to afford, realistically speaking. B&O is up, single 3 train. Probably is going to be linking up with this track 2, H14, I think, and has the option of laying into Lancaster, which looks like he has. That's fine. So at least the C&O probably won't be tokened out at Pittsburgh. Still a potential, but the C&O has options if it can get into Pittsburgh. The Lancaster token hurts, but not the end of the world. And B&O is going to be stuck with $300 in a 3 train. So like I said, none of these companies are very strong position, which is very good for me. Question is how to play this. I could buy the 4 out of the B&M and leave it a single train and very little cash, and then sell it down, try and pick up my paying shares of the C&O. Or I could do the opposite, buy a 3 out of the B&M, leave it a ton of cash, and then sell down the C&O. 2 3 trains in a brown company might be a little bit too attractive. And there's only 1 share in the C&O to take advantage of. I'm not going to be able to float a 3rd company. That would be way, way too dangerous, I think. Unless I was able to pick up the C&O and immediately float into, or immediately buy a 5 train, use it as a suitcase. These live games are a little bit hard to theory craft. Need to be a little bit careful that the NYC doesn't get into New York super easily. That may be the danger here, actually. B&M will have access to it, but who is going to be floating the NYC? Could be Miriam. That would be unfortunate. Not much I can do about it, though. We'll have to sell shares, so I could at least potentially pick up some cheap shares from them. Well, regardless, I've committed. Don't have any track I'm interested in laying. I'll have to token Providence, and we'll run my trains. I guess the question is, should I withhold here as well? But I think I'm just going to be too poor if I do that, so I'll pay that out. And then I will consolidate all my cash into a single company and try to sell out of my other companies to start withholding on it. If I start withholding on the B&M, I will sell down. I'll be operating very late here. All the new companies that float, should be at least 2 of them, will have the opportunity to run before me. But there's not a whole lot I can do in terms of blocking the NYC. So unfortunately, Miriam is probably in a pretty strong position. And PRR has not upgraded Lancaster, surprising, so I will see if I can get over there. Probably won't be able to. Running for a few extra bucks and still withholding. The question is, what do I do with all this cash? And if I buy the 4 out of the B&M and put the money into it, I don't think other people will be very motivated to buy my company. And I will be able to pick up this cheap $30 share, most likely. And then potentially 1 other share. It's going to be a little bit rough. We will see what these other players sell out of, but we'll be seeing the year in, probably the NYC floating. I suppose he could look at the CPR. He's left himself that opportunity. I think I want to buy the 4 out of the B&M, so I'm not going to be falling back trainless, and I'll put all my cash minus $41 into the B&M here so that I have a chance of picking up the 5 train on the B&M. B&M has a good amount of money. So the B&M is going to need $451 total, and I can do the math to get that. Unfortunately, though, if I give it $451, I won't have enough money for a token in the CNO, so instead I'll just have to prioritize that because I think the CNO token may be make or break. So instead I'll buy the 4 over for $41 less than what I have. So 418. Miriam's up. I anticipate her selling out of the PRR CNO, BNO, potentially even one share of her NYNH or two to float the NYC. In retrospect, I messed up here. I could have given $20 more into the B&M, and my private income would have carried me over the $41 threshold. Too late for me to undo that now. That's the problem with live play. I would have caught that in async. So as expected, Miriam's selling out of a bunch of shares, and hopefully I will be left to kind of pick up some of the leavings. I really hope that Hisby doesn't snap up my CNO share. He might. That would make this a dumpable company though, but with a 4 train, probably not feeling too threatened by that. I have amassed something of a share lead here, so I would like to see the game slow down a little bit. Crewmeister and Miriam are going to be able to catch up to me in total shares, but not all their shares are going to be paying, at least for the first operating round, so I'll still functionally have a share lead, at least for a little bit. Miriam only able to par for 82. And I realize now that I made another mistake. I wasn't paying attention. I laid the wrong track for the CNO. I left the north-south connection open. That's potentially quite dangerous. It gives Miriam a ton of power with the NYC and the NYNH. She can run through that. B&M also potentially could run through that, but it's very easy for the NYC to token here and block that. That was a big mistake on my part. I didn't even think about that. It's amateur hour on the stream right now. So interesting, Crewmeister is taking the CPR. Assume he's going to be suitcasing that. And Hisby, what share did he buy? Hisby bought the PRR share. PRR probably going to be withholding, although if he were to suitcase the CPR, I suppose he wouldn't necessarily need to. So maybe I'll snag that and hope that nobody else wants to buy my CNO share. If I can pick up 2 shares here, I think that's probably as best as I really can expect. Miriam continuing to float the NYC. Hisby, is he going to buy he can't afford my CNO share. Crewmeister is buying his CPR still, so I'll buy my CNO. It was pretty nice that I was able to snag those 2. And I think we'll just see the other players continuing to float here. Let's see if they're able to push through to the 5s. If they push through to the 5s, I don't think we'll also see the 6s. There's 2 4s left. And then I will, I believe, end up with priority here, which is pretty nice because Crewmeister is going to be last to float the CPR. So Miriam is sitting on an unfloated NYC. This potentially messes up my priority. And now she has bought it. Okay. So hopefully no more funny business, and I'll be able to walk away with priority here. It's the little things in life when you're behind. But actually Miriam is doing some shenanigans where she sells down the NYC. We'll be looking for a paying share probably. But this may cost me priority, unfortunately. I'll be going second last instead of first. Unless Crewmeister does the same thing, which is a possibility. I assume that Miriam wants to have a crack at buying into the fives here, um, which is very reasonable, but um, just from a purely selfish perspective, I would like to go first. So hopefully Crewmeister is going to counter with a sale of his own CPR. Plus, I'd love to see them just trashing their own share value. The Erie is a viable short-term suitcase. Usually it gets broken, an OR3 after it gets floated if someone tries that, but it may allow me to survive the train rush if I maintain priority. So Crewmeister is debating what he wants to do here. He actually sells out of the CPR. I think both of these players are manipulating turn order here, and then Crewmeister may also be looking for paying shares. We'll see if Miriam wants to sell out too. They need to be a little bit careful they don't put too many shares in the market doing this where someone is able to steal their company. This could be a little bit frustrating for me. CPR is operating after the B&M, so if they break into the fives, I may not be able to snag one with the B&M, although it would probably require a withhold on the B&O to snag one, so I might still be safe. And I suppose that becomes likely I could buy a train out of the C&O. Hate to buy a train across operating order, but if it gets me a 5 train and avoids a bankruptcy, it might be required. I may be forced to do quite a bit of withholding here. I don't know where my second permanent train is going to come from, especially if I don't get priority for the Erie. If I do get priority, I'll be tempted to full pay every time, and then try and float the Erie for something low, and then withhold afterwards for some permanent trains. Not controlling the NYC, it's a pretty tall order to try and suitcase the Erie. May not really be possible. So Miriam sold down and is just sitting on cash. Crewmeister is buying paying shares, which is hopefully going to give me priority here. NYNH does have potentially good revenue, but it may also be withholding. It only has $50, and Miriam doesn't quite have two permanent train money just yet. Crewmeister did have to sell out of the PRR, and there aren't too many cheap shares available. Otherwise, don't know that you're looking at the B&O, which is also potentially withholding at least one operating round. Crewmeister now buying a B&M market share. It's painful for me. Not that it makes all that much difference, but it does guarantee that I will have to withhold for this 5 train if I want it. I really messed up not realizing that I had $20 of income in the C&O. Another $20 would have put me over the 450 threshold. It's little things like that that end up costing you the game. I mean, I laid the wrong track and I didn't leave myself enough cash. So at this point, I don't really feel like I deserve to win. This is frustrating. So Miriam's buying my company and giving away priority potentially. Crewmeister does have enough cash for one more share, but would potentially be opening himself up to a dump. He's going to buy my Brown C&O share, taking a hit to do it. That's fine. I mean, this C&O is unlikely to pay out, and it will give me priority, which I have secured. Okay, so we'll see if I can snag the Erie. I don't know if that's going to be possible or not. If I full pay on both my companies and we have a little bit of a slower game, I may be able to sell out of some of the shares and grab the Erie to secure a permanent train for myself. B&O paying out. NYC doesn't technically have to buy a company buy a train just yet. Isn't going to have a route almost certainly. May want to just rush down to Reading and Allentown. Really need the NYC or the B&O and the PRR to block these companies from getting to Reading and Allentown. What did the B&O do there? He laid Philadelphia and Trenton. Okay. So we really need the PRR to upgrade Lancaster so B&O can lay Reading and Allentown. And I say that not because I think it's going to benefit the C&O really. I say that because otherwise Miriam's going to get out of control running into New York North and New York South. I don't know who's going to upgrade New York for her. It's not going to be me. I only have a single 3 train. She doesn't have the cash to do it yet. And it's going to take the NYC 3 ORs to get there. See if she buys a 4 train here. If she does, she's given a 5 train to the CPR player. I won't be able to take advantage of it with the B&M, unfortunately. And the B&O doesn't quite have cash, but with the withhold would get it to buy a 5. So CPR gets a 5, and the NYC would, and the B&O would get a 5. NYC may not be able to get a 5 before the B&M. B&M is going to be operating first if I pay out here. Did buy it, so I should be able to secure a 5 if I pay out of the B&M here and withhold next time. Could also do it with the C&O, but the C&O would be able to run its train otherwise, so I don't think I want to do that. All right, so we're skipping track, running a single train. Not going to run New York, it's a little bit worse. And we'll pay that out. CPR should be buying into 5s here. Needs to be a little bit careful that he leaves himself enough cash for that track in case he's forced to run the company. And I don't believe he did. No, he's $10 short. With one run, we'll be pretty close to it though, because he has 50 bucks. So we'll see if he wants to try and running that. This leaves Brown for the NYNH, probably going to upgrade Boston here, which benefits the B&O, or the B&M. And then we'll see if the PRR player is able to get into Lancaster. He will be able to. Does he have the money for a token? He has just enough. Great. So I screwed myself with the distribution of money between these two companies. I don't think we'll be seeing the 6 train come out here. Doesn't really seem like anybody has the money for it. I buy a 5, and the B&O buys a 5. NYC is not going to have the cash to withhold for a 6. So I will be able to run my 3 trains twice more, it looks like. And then I should be able to pick up this Erie. Question is if I'm going to bankrupt myself with yet more train liability. I've been playing very greedy, so I may just do that again. NYNH actually doesn't even lay any track. That's annoying. Surprised we didn't see a Boston upgrade. Would be a few extra bucks for them. PRR lays Lancaster, really does have to token that or else the C&O's okay. So unforced error here. No guarantee that this gets upgraded the way he wants in Brown, and has lost control of Lancaster. He's also going to have a really poor run for his train that he'll be running. So he's undoing my moves. Not really sure what that's about. Don't really love that my turn was undone there. Playing live, and I haven't really asked for any mulligans or takebacks, so whatever. We'll give him the ability to undo whatever he wanted to do. Hope it's not that token. All right, so just rethinking his moves, I guess. Not really sure. I'll run my trains. I have much better routes now that I was given this extra token, so I'm happy about that. Chicago's now $70 value. That's great. I'll be withholding because I'm fearing a bankruptcy here. And we'll see if the B&O wants to buy a 5 train here. There's 2 left, so I should be able to get one with the B&M, and then with another withhold on the C&O, I should be able to avoid bankruptcy. Okay. So B&O player has screwed over the PRR. I'll be cooperating with him. I should be able to get this Reading and Allentown track. I think that things are looking up for me. B&O had to withhold. I don't think I own any shares there. I don't. So that's painful for him. Who's going to be getting this Erie? I don't know that anybody's going to be in a great position for it. So I may be able to snag that down the road. I will skip laying track. If he doesn't want to upgrade New York, I'm definitely not. Oh, actually, I'm not skipping track. I'm upgrading Boston. And I think I want to lay it with this orientation to eventually be able to bypass that DIT with the 5 train. And I'll submit that, withhold, and I've secured a 5 train for myself. So feeling pretty good. Albany should be laying towards New York. Doesn't have a chance of getting into Reading and Allentown at this point. And PRR has been tokened out. So I actually will be able to secure myself some nice routes and will have close to permanent train money in the C&O. I'm going to be pretty tight on cash, but so will most of the other players. All right, so my position in this game is reasonable. Don't love running the B&M long term. Doesn't really have any potential. But I do have a brown company, and I'm neck and neck with everybody for shares. So there's life left in this game for me. I might be able to pull something out. NYC getting scared, I think, and realizing they're not going to have a run, has been tokened out of Reading and Allentown, and Philadelphia and Trenton are not laid friendly. So I guess he didn't have too many options, but he's really resistant to laying this NYC track. Um, he's going to be able to bring out a 6 relatively soon, but not if he keeps paying out. He's going to have to withhold eventually. And his run is not going to get any better because he didn't lay into New York. Is there a way I can throw away the track he needs here? The gentle upgrade for New York? That would be pretty fun. I could probably throw it away over here. I would have sole control of it. We'll see what the PRR wants to upgrade. If PRR upgrades Baltimore, I may be tempted to throw away this track for the NYC. And then let the B&O lay Reading and Allentown. He's going to lay it in a friendly, how useful this will be for the viewers. Hopefully it's at least mildly entertaining. I'm definitely playing very fast and loose. This is not the way I usually think about 1830 when I'm playing asynchronously, but what are you going to do? Live game is a different beast. All right, so and desperately needs self a route. I think he's going to regret it. But he also, with a 5 train in this company, really can't afford to sell out of the CPR. So he kind of has messed up and left himself in a bad position. He's going to be stuck holding the CPR into the next stock round if he's not careful. NYNH withheld, actually, I didn't realize that. I own a share in that company, so that's unfortunate. But Miriam is running scared, realizes it has no permanent companies, there's no permanent trains, has no 5 trains left. Could be staring down the barrel of a D train if they're not careful. And that is going to be a huge problem for him. You know, it may be worth trying to pay out on the C&O to get cash for a float of the Erie. Even a 67 float will be enough for the 6 train, which could be pretty devastating for all these other players. Might see a bankruptcy. The question is, do I win if I have a bankruptcy? I don't think I would. I'm not ahead of anybody. PRR actually had to withhold here. That's bad news for me. A lot of the shares I bought are withholding. Okay. So I need to make sure I don't mess this up. If I lay this upgrade here, that will hurt the NYC and NYNH, and it doesn't cost me anything because the B&O is still going to get that upgrade on Reading and Allentown. If I were to lay this track here, I would get a run into New York for myself. That might be tempting, too tempting to pass up this 4 train run and then run 3 train here. That's really good revenue. I think I might have to do that. I just want to say for the purposes of the stream that I saw this opportunity and I elected not to take it. Maybe that's a mistake. The B&O has lost all of his tokens, so he's not going to be blocking my run here. And the PRR is pretty cash poor. I don't think he even has cash for that $80 track. He doesn't. So at least for now, my run will be secure. Let's figure out my run here. Clear this. So that's pretty darn good. If I withhold this, I only own 40% of the revenue. I think I'd much rather have 100% of it. In terms of cash into the next stock round, I'm pretty much even with everybody else. Everybody should be able to pick up 1, maybe 2 shares. Yeah, and I'm train locked, so I'm not going to be able to break 6s. Okay, the only person with any potential to float the Erie, I believe, is Crewmeister if he sells out of the CPR. It's going to be hard for him to do it, so we might see a little bit of a stall here. If I pay out, are there attractive shares for me to be buying? If I pay out, I'll be getting about another $100. That's probably only one more share because 135 is roughly 2 shares. Could buy 2 shares of the CNO, for instance, if I'm given that. If I were to pay, I would buy one more share. But everybody else is withholding. So are the shares worth it? I have priority. It's a hard decision. I think I'll have to think about this for a second. I think I do need to withhold it. It's almost guaranteed that Miriam will bring it out of 6 um, by shuffling trains around next OR. And I need the money to secure myself a second train. So I'm going to play it safe. I've been playing fast and loose, and I think I need to change that up or else I'm going to bankrupt. I'll withhold on the CNO. Let's go ahead and do that. Still the same route, not quite. I lost my better route when I left the tab. So let's do this. Withhold that. And now I'll be buying some shares. Don't love the idea of buying my CNO share for such a expensive price. Instead, I could buy an NYNH. NYNH may be falling back. CPR unlikely to run. NYC also likely to withhold. B&O is not going to be withholding, but if I buy that share, I'm only getting 1. Nobody else is going to get more than 1 share, and I may be able to maintain priority. I don't see the B&O withholding, so I'll buy that. Okay. Hopefully we don't see any funny business, nobody floats the Erie, and I'm allowed to withhold one more time on the CNO in order to get myself 2 permanent trains. We'll see. I am 1 share behind Miriam and Crewmeister, and Hisby is falling behind a little bit. Does have decent runs for the B&O, so if he's allowed to run this 3-5 combo, this share I've just bought will pay off. Really surprised that we didn't see this number 2 track laid. I really dropped the ball laying the Akron and Canton tile, but the other players weren't able to take advantage of it. And by that I specifically mean Miriam running the NYNH and NYC. She will potentially have the option of linking up the NYNH and NYC here, which is bad for everybody else at the table. The B&O could potentially prevent that. He has access to this track here, but I don't know that he sees that possibility. May just want to upgrade New York. Seeing a little bit of a stall. Miriam's putting her thinking cap on, just as I had to. She's probably wondering if she can get away with selling out of one of her companies and floating the Erie to push trains. Would be very safe for her to float that company. Controlling the NYC and the NYNH would be very hard for anybody to push and lay track for it anytime soon. If she was able to end up with both 6 trains, she would be in a pretty strong position. Very low risk of bankruptcy. Granted, I am pretty darn close to the D train upgrade, and the CNO definitely has a D run now that it has that Lancaster token. It has a pretty darn good one too. If I was able to get a token in Philadelphia, I'd be totally safe. Not that I'm under that much danger from the PRR. It's going to have to withhold, and the CNO potentially has money to lay the token already. May want to look into doing that. What is Miriam getting up to? She's buying the B&O as well. Sees the same opportunity I do. Hisby, he is buying my B&M, and he buys it from the IPO, taking a little bit of a hit there. And Crewmeister, what is he getting up to? Could also buy a B&M. B&M's pretty attractive with these 2 trains. Decent chance it runs it. We'll be operating ahead of the NYNH at least, who I imagine is going to be the one to bring out the 6 with a shuffle train into the NYC. So Crewmeister is selling out the CPR and buying paying shares. That means that I will be having priority again, which means that I may be getting that Erie after all. So that's really nice. I understand why he's selling out of the CPR, but on the other hand, that's a 4 train that is now vulnerable. I don't think anybody wants to take it though. What is he buying? He bought the PRR last time, and he's buying orange shares, so he's going to buy up a bunch of shares in this company. I think that's a mistake. This 4 train's not going to last long, and the PRs runs long term aren't that great. Plus, he's going to have to withhold to stay orange. Out is going to force him to withhold twice. This particular case. B&O's up. Lancaster run 2 trains out of there. Could also see him upgrade New York. Any of these upgrades help me, but I'd love to see him just screw over Albany. I don't think we'll see it though. As long as he pays out, I'm invested. Wishing all the best for the B&O right now. All right, so he does upgrade New York. That was pretty predictable. As mentioned, helps the C&O, but we know that the NYC is going to immediately head over into New York North and token there. Will have decent runs for himself. Only has a single train, so not going to be double tapping New York at least. But he may actually be able to withhold for enough to bring out the 6 now with this company. I don't think he wants to. The NYNH hasn't run yet. He'd be running 2 of his 3 trains before they run. So may want to lay that token and then shuffle train out of the NYNH to buy the 6 that way. In which case, I'll be able to get the second 6 with the C&O at least. Is there a way for me to emergency buy the 6 instead of withholding? Yes, there is. So if I were to buy the 4, well, I can't do it and still run. I was hoping there would be a way for me to buy 1 train, but can't do it because that 3 train's going to rust probably. So he is just short of the 6 train with that withhold. That's pretty rough. I expected him to have enough to do it. The token in Albany doesn't really hurt me, or token in New York doesn't really hurt me on the B&M. I can lay this $120 track down the road and get into Albany. If I get the Erie, which there's a good chance I will be, I may leave Albany untokened so I can run both my companies through it. Yeah, I do have priority, so we'll see. Bad news for him that he's just a few bucks short of the 6. Love to see it, especially with the sole investor in the company being him. I tell you, this a few dollars here and there could really make or break you. This is a truism for 18XX in general, not specific to 1830. I've just paid that out, but they are going to be on the hook for some pretty expensive permanent trains here in just a moment. All right, so I'm running my 2 trains, no track for me to lay, and I have a shiny new 5 train to take one of that 3, and looks like he is actually not going to bring out the 6, which is good news for everyone. We're seeing a little bit of a stall here, and he's withholding, everybody else is paying. All right, we'll see what happens here. Do I withhold on the C&O again? I might have to, just because if I don't get a 6, I'm going to be on the hook for a D, and I'm already at the floor of the stock. With another withhold, I should be able to get the $800 required for the D train upgrade. Nobody else is bringing out the D train, so that looks pretty strong for me. Yeah, I think that's the move. Miriam shouldn't be able to get the D train upgrade and a 6 train, I don't believe. We'll have to settle for 2 6s. So she's upgraded Albany, upgraded at Friendly for Boston. That's fine. Can double tap New York now, but we'll have to hit DITS no matter what she does. So that really puts a little bit of a damper on her revenue. The DITS around New York are so brutal. I mean, they're necessary to balance the revenue center, but oh man, without a D train, it really makes New York a lot less fun to run through. You know, it's interesting. Erie in this game may actually end up being very good. Albany potentially open. Pittsburgh potentially open as well, especially if I'm cooperating with the C&O. So Erie with a token in Rochester, potentially really, really good runs. We'll see if that's worth doing. She's had to withhold on both of her companies, and I'm an investor in the NYNH, so I'm a little bit annoyed by that one at least. CPR continuing to suitcase, and PRR is up. So CPR actually bought a train out of the PRR. That's crazy. So it allows him to lay that $80 track. But I'm going to probably be tokening here. And he's shuffling trains willy-nilly. That's not going to work out for him. I'm not going to let him do that, I don't think. So upgrade Lancaster. I think that's the play here. gives me a few extra dollars and has less benefit to the other players. Do I want to token? So I'm running for 320. If I were to token, it would put me just out of D-Train upgrade money, which is a shame, but I can always withhold again. We will have multiple operating rounds. In terms of money, I am leading. I am behind in net worth, behind the B&O, because one of my companies hasn't run. If I were to pay out here, I'd probably be pretty close. Question is, does it make sense to allow the PRR to run this? It does not, especially now that he has token money. I need to secure that token. Yeah. So I'll token here and have the same run, 320, which I'll withhold. Do I need to withhold this? Is my run going to be getting any better? If I could pay this out and then withhold in the next round for 350, that would be really, really good. So am I able to double tap New York here? I think I should be able to. So let me see here. If I run here, and then I need a 5 train, it looks like. Oh, no, I don't. I can do this because I have this token now. So that's still just 320. That's unfortunate. It's these DITs. If this gets upgraded into Baltimore, though, I will have a few extra dollars. Yeah, this is rough. I'm just going to be just short of the D-Train upgrade with a single withhold. If I pay this out, does it change anything? So if I pay this out, and then the 3 trains rust, I'll be able to buy a train across with the B&M. The B&M will not have enough money, though, to give it at the upgrade. So I think I have to withhold, and then I'll have the money for the D-Train upgrade with this, no matter what happens. Okay, so we'll withhold this. That's painful. Let's just look at the spreadsheet here. So I am slightly behind HISB, but only because I'm withholding. The revenue is actually not that different. And that was probably the last time I'm going to withhold on the CNO. We'll see. I don't know that we're going to be seeing the 6 train. Yeah, we should be seeing the 6 train come out. All right, well, at least the B&M will get to run his 3 train. And HISB is laying track that's helpful for me. Okay, so we'll see what happens now. I've secured myself a very nice D-Train run. Can run down into Baltimore with this upgrade, through New York, and on all the way into Chicago. So that D-Train is going to be really, really good. I'm almost hoping at this point that Miriam rusts my 3s so I can just start crushing it with this CNO. If I get the D-Train, do I even really want the Erie? I may not. I may want to just buy my IPO shares, get 5 shares there. Okay. So the B&M, no track for me. Just running the same route, and I'll pay that out. NYC can just pay out here. Doesn't have to withhold again for the 6, so I imagine that's what we're going to be seeing. But again, going to be rusting both of his 3s, so he can emergency buy the 6 here, but it will be painful. Had to withhold twice in the last round and won't be running the 3s in this round either. Gives me a D-Train upgrade, which is without too much difficulty. And this is just 4.2, so if I get the D-Train here, I will get some nice runs in my CNO. Does withhold, that's kind of interesting. Didn't need to do that for the 6. And they cannot bring out the 6 with the NYNH currently. I suppose could be hoping that he gets the D-Train upgrade by buying a 6 with the NYNH, but that's definitely not happening. I'm going to get the D-Train upgrade. So he's ended up with 2 6s, basically no matter what, I think. And I have enough cash now that even out of pocketing a D train wouldn't be the end of the world for me. Who would end up with a 6 then? Probably whoever pars the Erie, which could be me. Yeah. Oh, so he's buying both 6s into the NYNH and will be able to run one of his trains at least. That's nice. Probably a better way of doing it than what I was thinking. I still think that it's a little bit problematic for him to be just having 6 trains against my D train. And actually had to withhold on the NYNH as well. Is short of the D train upgrade, but can pick up both 6s. That's okay. I've prepared for this. So all good. It does pain me that the only 3 train to rust without running is going to be the CNOs. So that's a little bit unfortunate, but what are you going to do? There's really no world where it doesn't make sense to buy a 6 train there. Yeah, he was thinking about it, but eventually did pull the trigger. Not going to be getting the D train upgrade, so really needs the 6. CPR still being suitcased, and this will leave the PRR running the 4 train one last time, but again, as a result of the way he tokened on Philadelphia, really has poor runs for himself. Has no way into New York at this point, and I can block him from getting into Chicago. So the PRR is a dead letter. This is the company that he was buying expensive yellow shares or orange shares for, and he's still going to have to withhold at least once more to stay orange. Just a mistake. I think Crewmeister has let me back into this game. I played very poorly early on, but he gave me some gifts with the PRR play. So he leaves the token in Pittsburgh. That's fine. I should be able to defend this, especially if I get the Erie. My only danger is the NYC heading over there at this point. I need to leave Pittsburgh untokened because my CNO has such a good D run with a run through there. PRR ended up paying out, but we'll have to withhold to stay in this zone. Honestly, it's probably not worth it. It's the difference of 1 share. So in terms of track, I think that I want to lay this to set up for my D run. Is that necessary? It does make my D run quite a bit better. I'm just wondering if I need to start laying track preemptively here, but I think it's okay. So I've got a 4 train, and I really don't want to hit a DID I don't need to, but it looks like I have no real choice. So I'll just get an extra $10 here, because otherwise I would just be running a 3 train if I don't hit the DIT. So I'll submit that. Unfortunately, I have to withhold it, but who knows when that cash will be helpful, and I've secured myself a very strong D train. And just looking at the spreadsheet, so I'm falling a little bit behind his B here, but that's okay because he's trailing me in shares and he has a dead letter B&O compared to my rocket of a C&O. And I have enough cash to float the Erie already. I can min par the Erie and try and get it yellow. And then we'll see if I'm able to pick up any shares of the C&O. If even one player misses the boat and doesn't buy it, they're in trouble. It will be painful to only have 4 shares of the C&O though. So, but I think I need to buy the Erie to ensure that the Erie doesn't cut my C&O run. So that's just me being stuck at Pittsburgh as a result of the PRR player. That's fair. I mean, I can't complain about the PRR player who's giving me a bunch of gifts this game. B&O has a 5 train run already, just kind of laying random track there. At least he's not, trying to screw me over at Pittsburgh somehow. And as long as he keeps paying. So the B&M track is determined, and I have a 5 train, so unfortunately I'm going to have to hit 2 DITs until I get into Albany at least, which I think will eventually happen in this game. I have the money for it in the C&O, and I will be starting the Erie as well. So I'll eventually be able to lay that track. I need to make sure that the Erie floats and gets a token in Rochester probably. NYC doesn't have any cash and can't withhold this turn. Miriam has been put in a really rough position by the way the trains have broken in this operating round. A lot of withholds, falling back, and ultimately is going to be stuck with 2 6 trains um, without really good runs for them. 6 train in the NYNH, pretty underwhelming. Going to have to hit the DIT, potentially hit both DITs until it gets over into Rochester, and then no guarantee it ever gets into Hamilton and Toronto with the Erie going my way most likely. So my goal for the next stock round is to float the Erie for as high as it can go. Well, actually, not necessarily as high as it can go. I just want to have probably 630 plus token money, and then ideally money for a $100 track, $120 track. So that would be 640, 790. So I'll have to float at 82, which I should have the money for it to do all that. And the NYC still doesn't have cash for a token, so I'm safe with the Erie. NYC is going to have to withhold, but it's not going to be able to do it in time. NYNH first run running for 240. Okay. PRR. Let's see what he wants to do. He may be looking to get the NYC over into Pittsburgh to screw the CNO, but it's probably going to be too little too late. My problem is that I think that all the players are going to buy up these CNO shares. This run for the 5 train is really pathetic. He messed up big time with this token on Philadelphia and Trenton. That's going to end up potentially determining the game if I'm able to win this. Otherwise, I think I was out early on. So what I was saying is that the CNO run is going to be very attractive because it's going to run for like $400, and everybody's going to see that and snap up those brown shares after I float the Erie, unfortunately. But if I don't float the Erie, I think I'll regret it. CNO has a good run regardless of getting into Chicago. 50, 80, $150 to it. What the hell is that? I hate when people do this. That's my real-time reaction to this garbage. All right. Well, you've been watching Track Talk. I think I had this game in the bag, but this is the culture on 18xx games. People just give up. Hate to see it. Thanks for watching.